Hi there, and welcome to the Alberta Update, a first-hand look at what's happening in your province. I'm your host, Bruce McAllister. Thank you for tuning in. Thanks for being with us today. We have tons coming at you here in the next half an hour or so. The Premier is standing by, as are the Ministers of Education and the Ministers of Health for a discussion. But let's begin here. The legislature is back in session, and it has already been a busy week. MLAs returning to the chamber. The government has laid out its priorities for the months ahead, and the Minister of Finance officially tabling the budget, setting the fiscal course for the year to come. We'll have much reaction to that in the next half an hour or so. New legislation, of course, being introduced. We'll get some reaction to that and look at what's to come. Coming up, we'll break down what the new budget means exactly and how you and your family may be impacted. The Premier, as I said, standing by to discuss the budget and much more. But first, here is an excerpt from the Minister of Finance, Nate Horner, with the budget address.
"2025 tested us as individuals, as communities, and as a province. This year will be no different. This year, Alberta's finances reflect global uncertainty, rising costs, and our staggering population growth, all of which are placing real pressure on our essential services, stretching our system's capacities to their limit. Budget 2026 is our plan to face a hard year head on. It focuses on what matters, makes careful choices, and takes decisive action where it counts. Budget 2026 focuses on what we can control, limiting spending increases, and setting clear priorities so taxpayer dollars are spent wisely. That means investing in our healthcare system to meet the needs of a growing and aging population. That means record support for students, teachers, and classrooms across the province. Budget 2026 keeps priorities clear and supports Albertans who need it most. It provides predictable funding for communities and invests in businesses to support stronger and a more diverse economy."
Okay, and there is the Premier to discuss all of this and its impact on Albertans. Boy, what a busy first week of session. Good day, Premier.
Hello, Bruce.
Okay, red ink, never a good thing in Alberta, but we've got to put it in perspective. I would suggest Alberta is in a lot better position than the other provinces and certainly the federal government. Your reaction, I guess, to the budget and where we're at, just a general comment first.
Well, let me put it into context. When you've got good times, that's when you're supposed to pay down debt and put money away in savings. And we did that in the last 3 years because of strong energy prices. We were able to put $15 billion down on the debt, and we were able to double our Heritage Savings Trust Fund. So it's now at $32 billion. So that's a net debt to the positive position of about $30 billion. However, when your revenues fall off and you kind of have the kind of population growth that we have, you have to make some tough choices. And one of the tough choices that we didn't want to make was in any way depriving people of the services that they need, whether it's healthcare, education, other social services, or creating instability in infrastructure. We know that there's some help is on the way, that we're finally seeing some moderation in some of those temporary guest worker streams that had been putting so much pressure on our economy. We're also finally seeing some companies talking about expanding investment in all sorts of fields, but including energy. And we're working on a long-term strategy of getting another new 1 million barrel a day bitumen pipeline. And those are the kinds of things that will help in the mid to long term. In the immediate term, though, unfortunately, if you do not want to raise taxes, which we don't, and you don't want to put big cuts into service or big cuts to services in place, you unfortunately end up with a shortfall, and that's what we're seeing today.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about the two big ones that you just mentioned. We'll go healthcare and education, but start with healthcare. $34.5 billion, I believe, in the budget. This is the one I found interesting. The largest commitment to doctors in our history, nearly $8 billion. You're obviously focused and committed to getting more Albertans the care that they need. Is it working?
Well, I can tell you that a few years ago, some of the concerns that we had were hearing about doctors not choosing to come here to match the same level of population growth that we had. And so we put a lot of effort into that. And as a result, we see more doctors here, and more nurses here, more LPNs, more paramedics, more nursing aides. And I think that that's a vote of confidence in the system. And we want to make sure that that confidence continues. When it comes to doctors in particular, whether it's frontline family doctors, we now have over 800 that are accepting new patients with the new model that we have. And we've got some work to do on specialists. There's no doubt about it. We hear that even though we've got high budgets, we have to see about how we can get more new patients in to be able to get those first visits so that we have more accessibility. So there's some work that we need to do on that. And it's part of the reason why we put the budget forward that we did, is so that we can resolve some of those access issues, make sure that our ERs are working effectively, getting people through to getting surgery when they need it, especially for medically recommended and necessary surgery. And so we wanted to do the indication to the doctors that this is the year that we have to address some of those pressure points, and we want to make sure we have the budget to do it. On education, we also know the incredible pressure that the surgeon population has had on our schools. We heard about complexity. We heard about aggression in the classroom. We've already started with 476 complexity teams. We mentioned that we were going to continue that funding through to next year and add more. And I think, as you can see, we're committed to doing that. We know that schools have become really complicated environments, particularly in the last few years. It'll take a bit more time for us to see some of that complexity sort itself out as the kids get older and work through the grades, but we've got to provide the support now, and that's the other indication we wanted to give to teachers that help is on the way.
Premier, I've learned to fact check most of what I see in the media. That said, something crossed my desk here a couple of days ago, and I had to do a double and a triple take, and I just want to make sure I got this right. Did the president of the Alberta Teachers Association just pay a compliment to the commitment that you were making, that your government is making to education? I can't remember a comment like I heard from him before.
Well, it's a shame that we had some of the problems that we did in the fall. And we always knew that complexity and aggression and some of the surgeon population was putting huge pressure on our teachers. We would have loved to have gotten to some of the solutions that we did earlier. Didn't happen, but we're starting now. We put together an education cabinet committee. We're getting some wonderful feedback, not only from the ATA rep, but also from the other teachers and trustees and superintendents who are on that as well. And they're giving us some really good guidance about what we need to do to make life easier for our teachers. They just want to teach. They want to make sure they can get the best results for every kid in their classroom. There's a lot of complex needs. We want to make sure that those kids are supported in the right way. And I think that kind of collaboration it's a good thing. It's good for teachers. It's good for parents. It's good for the students. And I'm glad to hear that the AT president had that to say.
Wonderful. Well, you raise an important point, so I'd like to ask you about it, and that's immigration. Some, for whatever reason, believe it's an issue you can't talk about because there must be an injustice somewhere. Others logically say this many people is having an impact on all of our services. I'll give you a chance to talk about that, I guess, and how it impacts our budget and your feelings on it.
Well, I can tell you that there's two schools of thought about what you do when you end up with this kind of crunch. One of the things we were doing is focusing on the revenue side. And then we also have to look at the expenditure side. So look at our neighbor in British Columbia, because they're facing a $13.3 billion deficit. We almost have the same population. So that puts that into context. And the way they're doing it is they're cutting services for everyone. Not only are they going to increase taxes by $4 billion, income tax bracket a change, pausing indexing, expanding the PST, increasing the school tax, but they're also going to eliminate 15,000 public service jobs over the next 3 years. So that's what happens if you want to take a everybody feels the pain type of approach. We want to preserve core services, but we think that Albertans should have first access to those jobs that are available. And then newcomers, guest workers, should be the ones who are able to fill positions that we don't have a workforce for. We also believe that social programs should be available to those who make a permanent commitment to be a taxpayer in this province and in this country. And that's permanent residents and citizens. Somebody who's here just on a temporary contract, should they really be entitled to all of the same programs, childcare, healthcare, education, social services, and other social supports as somebody who is a citizen or a permanent resident? That's the question that we're going to be putting to Albertans in the fall, because just to put it into context, We had 600,000 people come into our province in the last 5 years. And if you look at the average amount that we pay in program services, it's about $15,600 per capita. We're at the lower end of the range. We're a little bit above Ontario, but we're at the lower end of the range when it comes to other provinces. And we've done some hard work to get it down to that level. But even just doing the math on that, that's about a $9 billion additional cost associated with that many people coming in that quickly. And we haven't seen a concurrent increase in the amount of revenue, and it puts us in the position that we're in. So that's why we're having the conversation. We've got a long-term plan, Heritage Savings Trust Fund, that'll ultimately, when it's $250 billion, act as that stabilizer, which we hope to get to by 2050. We've got a midterm plan in all the investment that we're doing across all sectors to increase revenue. But the short-term plan is, should we be looking at, first of all, some kind of limitation on the number of people who come to the province, prioritizing those who have a job first, and making sure that it's a job that fills a need in our economy that an Alberta worker can't fill? And should there be some kind of period for temporary guest workers before they qualify for our social programs? I think it's reasonable. I think our Alberta Next, you heard the Alberta Next panel discussion and the consultation we did. I think that Albertans who participated in that process think it's reasonable. But we want to make sure, since it would be quite a departure from previous policy, quite a change in direction, we want to make sure that it's affirmed by all of Albertans. So that's why it's going to go to a vote in the fall.
Makes perfect sense. Beyond reasonable. Premier, thank you for addressing it. Hey, one more before I let you go. I know you've got lots on your plate. Some bills in the legislature. One I'd like to ask you about, Mike Ellis introduced this week, trying to help our sheriffs be trained so that they can become police officers and help us with some of the pressure points in the system and improve public safety. Can you comment on the importance of that?
Well, let me comment in the context of an event I went to with the Grand Prairie group. They always bring Grand Prairie City and County and Greenview County always bring down their mayors and reeves so that we can understand the importance of what's happening in the region. And one of the things that's been very interesting is they made a choice to go to a municipal police service and move away from the RCMP. And they're having such success at it that they're actually implementing it 2 years early. So they've already hired 70 officers on site. They'll be having another 90 that will be providing service as of October, and they'll fully phase out and into a municipal police service. And talking to the mayor, she says people are already seeing a difference, that when you have the presence on the streets, people just feel safer. The bad guys, they try to avoid doing bad things when you've got officers on patrol and you can actually see the presence. And they're very encouraged about being able to control their local policing priorities. Compare that to virtually every other jurisdiction that we have heard about that is policed by the RCMP. Under-resourced detachments, not being able to get call times, long periods of time where the detachment is closed. And so what we're offering is a bridge. We're offering another option for municipalities who might not be large enough to start up their own police service, although some are, who might not be able to work with an adjacent municipality to have a regional service, but want to be able to have a sheriff's detachment. And to do that, we've got to make sure that the sheriffs have the same training as other levels of police, municipal and federal, so that they can provide that role seamlessly. And we already have a couple of municipalities that are interested in starting sheriff's detachments. So as soon as this legislation is passed, you'll probably see a few more announcements in that regard.
All right, Premier, listen, thanks for this, and we'll see you in the weeks ahead. Always appreciate your time. Earlier this week, Minister Joseph Scow, who wears two very important hats, addressed the media at the legislature. The minister, of course, in addition to serving as the Minister of Jobs, Economy, Trade, and Immigration, also serves as the government House Leader. And it is the second role which helps set the tone in the Alberta legislature and for the work that's happening inside of the chamber. At a press conference, as I mentioned earlier this week, Minister Scow outlining the government's legislative agenda for the spring session, highlighting the key priorities, upcoming bills, and the focus areas that Albertans can expect. Here's a look from Minister Scow's press conference.
As Minister of Jobs, Economy, Trade, and Immigration, I plan to introduce two pieces of legislation. One will be legislation to advance interprovincial trade by adopting the Mutual Recognition Agreement on the sale of goods. This means an easier path for businesses to buy and sell products across provincial and territorial lines. The second piece of legislation I plan to introduce will give greater control to the province over immigration and protect newcomers from bad actors in the immigration system. Our government also plans to introduce legislation that creates a structure for streamlined approval of major projects. By creating a projects delivery office and establishing requirements for 120-day approval, we are letting major investors know that Alberta is open for business. Next, we'll increase consumer protection by putting in place regulation for destination marketing fees. Alberta is a top-tier destination with a growing tourism sector. We are also protecting Albertans and our communities with continued implementation of the Alberta Sheriff's Police Service. The implementation of the ASPS creates more policing solutions and options for municipalities in Alberta and gives Albertans the confidence they need that when an emergency is happening, an officer will be there to help. Our government is taking steps to protect vulnerable Albertans by prohibiting medical assistance in dying in Alberta for select groups, including minors, including mature minors, individuals with a mental illness or disorder as their sole underlying condition, individuals making advance requests, and adults without healthcare decision-making capacity. Other changes will increase oversight and regulate healthcare workers involved in referring, assessing, or performing medical assistance in dying. And we have a red tape reduction bill that amends 11 pieces of legislation from 7 different ministries. The fact is, Albertans are looking for competency in their government. They're looking for a government offering solutions to the challenges we face today and the headwinds they're walking into tomorrow. They're looking for a government that leads and still exercises responsibility and delivers even in the hard times. Our government is diversifying the economy, creating jobs, and building schools and investing in healthcare. And that's what the legislation this session is intended to do.
Well, if that is any indication, it is going to be a very busy spring sitting of the Alberta legislature. And we will, of course, continue to follow the progress of those bills and update you as they move forward throughout the legislature. You know, it's clear that one of the government priorities has certainly been education, and the man that is responsible for education and children's services, or childcare, I guess it is Minister Demetrios Nicolaides. He joins us now to chat more about those things. Good day, Minister.
Thanks for having me, Bruce.
Always happy to. So many people tune in when we interview you. So many people impacted by the things that happen with their kids. So Budget 2026 proposing $10.8 billion in education operations. What does that increased funding mean specifically for students in classrooms in practical terms this year, Minister?
Yeah, you're right. Budget 26 will push us to $10.8 billion of total investment in our education system. That is a massive level, unprecedented amount of an investment, but I think more importantly, a significant shift from last year as well. From last year, this budget will see about a $722 million increase in real terms, which is about a 7% increase. Of course, we know that we're experiencing some challenges with class sizes and increased complexity. So this is a historic investment that is going to make a real difference in so many classrooms across the province.
Okay, well, you already announced, I think it was almost 150 million for class size and complexity, including complexity teams. How do those teams support teachers day to day, Minister, and how will this budget increase that support as well?
Yeah, that's right. We announced 143 million to establish these complexity teams for many elementary schools primarily. The complexity teams will be structured with 1 teacher and 2 educational assistants. And their job will be to, well, first of all, if there is any existing resource in a school that's providing support for diverse learners, to help supplement and augment that, but to be the primary point of contact to support students regardless of their needs. So if you have a student who is maybe engaging in some disruptive behavior, this team can pull that student out and work with them one-on-one. If you have a student who's maybe behind in English or in math in those early formative years, this team can pull some of those kids out and do some more one-on-one work with them. If you have a child who's gifted and needs some more challenges, this team can, again, work with that individual one-on-one. So we are going to continue with our investments into classroom complexity. Budget 26 includes an additional 355 million that will go to support school boards in hiring more staff, and addressing some of these complexity issues. So much more to come there.
Okay, listen, I pulled a couple of things out as I went through this. I want to ask you about them. 20 million as well for reading and math supports for younger students. What kind of supports, I guess, are being strengthened, and how will you use that to enhance the work that you did with the math and reading screeners, I think, that you previously announced last year?
Yeah, this is a big step forward. This is about a 63% increase in that budget line item for our school board. So a really big investment there. I think everyone can agree that we have to get the foundations correct in those early formative years. We passed a bill last session that mandated that all school divisions must assess every student from kindergarten to grade 3 for their reading and math fluency and abilities. These dollars will go directly to school boards so that they can hire EAs or increase the number of hours that an EA is working to give students that have been flagged by these assessments with more one-on-one support to get them up to reading level. So it'll put a significant focus on those formative years to make sure that students are where they need to be with those critical learning years.
Lots of money, Minister, to hiring new teachers and support staff, and I think it was more than 5,000. In fact, this is multi-year funding, which I guess probably helps you put a laser on that issue from year to year, and any changes and adjust accordingly. Is my guess is why you do it that way.
Yeah, absolutely. We've outlined, of course, not just from this budget, but what the 3-year fiscal framework will look like. And we anticipate to continue to make investments into our education system over the next 3 years. By the end of that 3-year period, we estimate that will be our total education spend will be over $11 billion. And the cumulative investment that we'll be making over those 3 years should get us about 5,000 new teachers into our education system. So that's our outlook. Of course, things can fluctuate from year to year, but that's what we're currently forecasting for at this point.
Minister, I may be putting you on the spot, forgive me if I am, but because there are so many numbers, but I think of something like transportation for kids. I don't know if you know how much that line item is off the top of your head, but I know it's a big one. I remember reading it. How do you ensure that kids are getting to and from school and we're paying for that, and that's safe and reliable as well?
Yeah, it's about $400 million that we'll see in budget 26 directly connected to transportation. Don't quote me exactly on the exact dollar amount, but it's in that ballpark. I do know that we are increasing the transportation funding line item by 3% to help more kids, of course, be able to get to school. We have an extensive transportation system across this province with almost 1 million kids in our education system as a whole. Of course, there are a lot of transportation needs with just under about 500,000 students accessing transportation services very regularly. So we have to keep up with some of the inflationary pressures that we see, of course, related to transportation.
Yeah, you bet. I'm glad you mentioned rural too. It's a big issue there. Listen, Minister, thanks for taking some time. Good luck with things as always, and we'll chat with you as the session moves forward.
You got it. Thanks so much.
There's the Minister of Education and Childcare, Demetrios Nicolaides, joining us on the Alberta Update. Well, one of the interesting, nice traditions in Canadian politics is before every budget is announced, there is usually a pre-budget Boots video. This year was no exception. The Finance Minister, Nate Horner, putting one together, a symbolic video that symbolizes Budget Day and what's ahead for the province of Alberta. If you missed it, here is the Finance Minister, Nate Horner, with this year's video.
Albertans don't back down from challenges, and we all know right now fiscal times are tough. Costs are up and uncertainty is everywhere.
Deloitte Canada recently released its spring economic outlook entitled Trade Tensions Stall Momentum.
Slowing global markets, low oil prices, and outside pressures are affecting our bottom line. In moments like this, you tighten your belt. You plan ahead and you make sure you're ready for what comes next. That's why, while we're projecting a higher deficit this year, we're continuing to make smart, responsible investments in the things that matter most to Albertans, like healthcare, education, and our economy. This is the moment to step into the right boots for the job, steady, practical, and built for tough conditions. Because getting through challenging times is not about talk, it's about taking action, one step at a time. With perseverance, hard work, and our strong values, Alberta always comes out ahead. Despite our deficit, Alberta remains in the strongest fiscal position of any province in Canada. Alberta maintains the lowest tax burden, the strongest GDP per capita, and the highest weekly earnings for workers across Canada. That's not luck. That's making tough choices when it matters and setting ourselves up for what comes next. While this year brings real challenges, every Albertan knows that even the hard years aren't for wasting. You invest, you plan, you plant the seeds that will carry you through the next season. No matter what shoes you wear, on the rig, in a classroom, in a hospital, or running a small business, you have a role to play in building Alberta's future. That's why our government will continue investing in what matters most to Albertans, because Albertans need services they can rely on and stable jobs that pay the bills. Our population is growing fast, and smart, disciplined planning matters now more than ever. We invest today to protect tomorrow, for our families, our communities, and our province. Alberta's been through tough times before, and every time we come out stronger. That's what this moment calls for, rolling up our sleeves, getting to work. Budget 2026 focuses on what matters for today and for the next generation.
A great message from Finance Minister Nate Horner, focused, forward-thinking, and ready to go. So much to do in the great province of Alberta. Well, one of the ministries most impacted by the budget would be health, and there is the minister with a new title, I guess, Adriana LaGrange, Primary and Preventative Health Services Minister. That's a lot to say. I know how busy you are. Thanks for taking time to chat with us.
My pleasure, Bruce. Happy to be here.
Hey, the first thing I want to ask you about, I talked to the Premier a little bit about this earlier. $7.7 billion of the budget goes toward physicians, and that's 22% more than last year. Does that have to do with the fact that we have worked so hard to bring so many more physicians to Alberta? Is it a combination of that and labor practices? I mean, it's a big number.
It is a big number, and I can share that we've been very successful and continue to be successful in getting more physicians to come to Alberta. They're seeing it as a great place to come and work. We provide competitive wages, and I dare say some of the best wages in all of Canada, which is very positive. So of that 7.7 billion, 7.3 billion is for physician services and compensation. Then there's 450 million, which is really about recruitment and education. As you know, Bruce, we are in fact expanding our medical training programs across the province, particularly in our rural remote locations, particularly in Grand Prairie and Lethbridge. We want 100 more doctors graduating right here in Alberta to service our rural communities. And so that's another good news story. So a portion of that money is going to that. And then we have $15 million that is going to additional supports, such as our medical residents. We have a medical resident bursary program for rural remote locations. And again, we're providing a significant amount of money to those doctors who are willing to sign a 3-year contract, a 3-year return of service to go and serve some of our rural remote locations where we struggle to get actual physicians in those communities.
Okay, fabulous. I was going to ask you about that as well, so I'm glad you jumped right into it. It can be a challenge, right? Recruiting and retaining doctors to rural Alberta. So good for you for being forward thinking on that. I think I read somewhere this week, Minister, correct me if I'm wrong, 8 in 10 Albertans have access to a primary care physician. So I assume that means a doctor, a nurse practitioner, et cetera. Where do we compare nationally, I guess, and what is your target? Because that sounds like a pretty good number.
Well, it is a pretty good number. We're amongst the highest in the country, and that number comes from CIHI, which is the Canadian Institute for Health Information, and that's a lagging number, so that's last year's numbers, 2024 numbers. When we look at a current survey that was put out by Globe and Mail just recently, we actually are at closer to 88%. having saying that they have a family practitioner, that's excellent. But I'm not going to rest until we have 100% of Albertans attached to a primary care home. So that's my target, 100%, and we're going to keep working towards that.
Wow. Well, good news. You often hear about the shortages, but the fact of the matter is more doctors than ever in Alberta, in large part to the work that you and your department is doing. You also opened a new health portal recently, and you made an announcement with the Premier as well this week. Maybe discuss why that's so important, that portal, and some of the advantages for Albertans.
Well, the portal is an updated portal. We used to have Find a Doctor, Alberta Find a Doctor, and now we've called it Alberta Find a Provider. And that allows for anyone who's looking for a family practitioner, whether it's a doctor, a nurse practitioner who's actually taking on patients, or a midwife in Alberta, that they can go to that portal. It's a one-stop shop. It's we've updated the information. We've made it more user-friendly so that people can just find what they're looking for. And I'm happy to say that we have over 800 doctors, nurse practitioners, and midwives on that portal right now accepting new patients. That's a huge increase across this province. We know that we have over 400 doctors accepting new patients in Calgary alone, over 200 in Edmonton. We're going to continue to work on that. But I think it's very, very important for Albertans to know that we have that available to them. And also we have another website that they can track attachment and some of the other metrics that they may be interested in. We really want to be transparent with Albertans so that they can see how the system is improving and what we need to make it even better.
Minister, there's one more area we should address, I guess, when it comes to digital, the portal, and accessing information. Parents have had a challenge obtaining the information they want about their kids. You have made that easier. Maybe walk us through how that works.
Yes, My Health Records is an electronic record, and parents have been telling me, and it was really quite shocking to me, that parents could not access their children's health record beyond the age of 12. And yet young people could actually access their own health record from 14 onwards. So there was actually a gap between 12 and 14. And in fact, many parents and many young people as well were saying they wanted their parents to have access to their health records. So what we've done is changed the policy so that parents actually now have access to their children's record right up to age 16. And in fact, if those young people want their parents to be on their My Health Records as their responsible adult guidance person, they can continue to have that. So we definitely want to make sure that parents have availability and access to that important information they need to help their children in their medical journey.
I know parents will appreciate that. You and I both have kids and grandkids, so good news, good news. Listen, thanks for this. We always appreciate your time.
Thank you.
All right, there's Minister Adriana LaGrange. She is the Minister of Primary and Preventative Health Services. Again, record numbers for doctors in the budget that was announced earlier this week. Well, that is it for the Alberta Update this week, a first-hand look at what's going on with your government and what's happening in Alberta. Again, we do these every week that the Alberta Legislature is sitting. Next week, as is tradition, is a constituency week as the MLAs and ministers get back to their constituencies to talk to stakeholders and community members, residents about the budget, get some feedback, those sorts of things. But we will be back, the very week after that. And you can find us, of course, on Rumble, on YouTube, and all of the socials. That's where we try to broadcast the Alberta Update for you. And again, we'll continue to do it as long as the Alberta Legislature is sitting. Thank you for being with us, and we will see you again next time.